Welcome back to another lens review video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Vivitar 28mm f2.8, the good, the bad, the ugly. Let's get into it. So a little bit of history on this lens. There are about 38 different variations of this specific lens, made by Bauer, Komine, Kino, Chiron over the years. There have been quite a few different ones, lots of different mount types, FD, MD, N, OM, K. This is a Nikon variation, you can tell by the sights at the top. It makes it pretty easy to adapt to whatever you're trying to adapt it to, whether it's mirrorless, DSLR. You can usually find a very cheap adapter. It doesn't need any glass to mount this to whatever you're looking for. So the Vivitar 28mm 2.8 has been made in a lot of different factories over the years, lots of different mount types. So whatever mount type you're looking for, if you're shooting on an actual vintage body, you can probably find it. It's sturdy but lightweight with an all metal body, coming in at about 127 grams. It's got a 6-blade aperture with half stops in between, going from 2.8 to 16. It's also got a 49mm filter size, which makes it really easy to find filters and adapters for the end of the lens. This lens is made up of 7 elements in 7 groups. Close focus distance, it's about 10 inches adapted to the 5D Mark III, which is what I've been shooting with it on. Originally, you were about 1 foot away, so a couple inches more. So now that we've got all that out of the way, let's take it for a walk and see what I think of it on the camera.
So I tried this lens on a few different camera bodies, smaller ones, larger ones. This would be a larger body on the 5D Mark III. And what's consistent on all of them is that you don't really notice that the lens is there. It's so small and so lightweight that it almost might as well not exist. Overall, this lens is pretty easy to use. 28mm is an easy focal length to start with, sort of a good middle ground between really wide and something like a 50mm. Wide open, it's not super sharp. Stop down to about f4, you start to get a little sharper, all the way up to about f8. And once you get past f8, you sort of decrease in image quality once again. We've got some geese and ducks and stuff at the pond today, so let's see if we can snap a few photos.
So looking at these images straight out of camera without any post-processing, first thing I notice is that we've got a little bit of vignetting here. We're shooting wide open. It's a little bit darker in the corners than it is in the center, but the bokeh looks nice. It looks a little busy here, but we're shooting at grass, so it's probably going to look a little busy. And you've got a little bit of lens flare up here. The sun's over here somewhere, so our focus is right in the middle. We got a little bit of purple fringing, but nothing too bad here. I'm really surprised with the contrast I'm getting out of this right out of camera. These haven't been touched at all, and the contrast looks very good. A lot of older lenses don't have great contrast. I think it looks really good. My focus is about here on this one. Once again, you can see a little bit of purple fringing, and this was a little bit of a sharpness test, so I just focused right on this piece of bark that's sort of come undone, and we're wide open here once again, and it's pretty sharp for being wide open on a cheap lens. For sure. The background bokeh is pretty pleasing here. Once again, it looks pretty good. You've got sort of, not too many light sources, but you've got sort of soap bubble bokeh in here. And here's one focused at infinity. We're pretty sharp in the center, but as we move toward the edges, you see that the quality sort of drops off a little bit. You get a little grainy over here in the corners. Also, you'll notice that you get purple fringing, some green fringing in here too, and then there's a little bit of distortion happening too, but that's not uncommon for a 28mm. If we look at the ducks in the middle, they're not sharp, but they're not blurry, so they're just not completely in focus. Overall, I think it's pretty good though. You've still got the vignetting up at the top. As we move toward the edge, you can see that we've got a drastic loss in quality over the couple inches toward the edge here.
So one of the questions is, why am I reviewing this lens? Well, I'd say it's because of the price point. I picked this lens up for $21, and it's almost in mint condition. So what are the drawbacks of this lens? Well,
obviously $21.
It's not going to be the highest quality lens you're going to pick up. Another thing that I've really been liking about this lens is when you're filming video with it, the focus throw is 170 degrees and it's pretty loose, so you can actually pull focus with one finger around the focus ring, which is actually pretty cool. I've been walking around with this lens on my camera for a little while today. I'd say overall it's pretty fun. It's fun to use, it's quick, it's nice to just snap photos with.
And at $21, it's hard to really go wrong.
So I'm going to take a couple more shots while I'm out here. We'll look at some video examples and you can decide for yourself what you think about it.
This one, a little more lens flare. You can see we've got 1 green, 2 purple bubbles here, and we're also stopped down. You can tell because there's no longer round anymore. So we're probably at maybe an f4 here, maybe an f5. You can see we're a little bit sharper in here too. And then there's this weird mist. It's kind of a rainbow blur mist that's over the center of the frame. That's kind of interesting. I haven't seen that on very many lenses before. And here's another one with sort of the sun coming through the grass. And then on the other side of the frame, I tend to see these purple kind of streak lines, rainbow lines on the other side. This one you'll see where the sun's coming in. If we zoom in, you've got some really bad blue and purple fringing, some chromatic aberration happening. And here's another one with that flare coming in. Now this is when the flare starts to get a little bit of character. It's kind of got a teardrop shape, which is interesting, and I'll show you more of this later. And then you've got this sort of purple reflection over here, which seems to happen over and over again, and a little bit in here too. The interesting thing about this shot is that there's no chromatic aberration. I mean, you can scroll around this whole shot and it's pretty clean, which is contrary to the other shots that we've looked at. And here's sort of an exaggerated look with a few of the different things we've seen. So we've got sort of the rainbows here and here. Then we've got some kind of smudge up here, which is, the lens is clean. So this is a smudge that is coming from the actual sunburst here. You've also got a little mark here, which is also from the sunburst, a little rainbow. And this might be where the sun's coming in and reflecting maybe off of the ring of the lens. And then over here, like I pointed out before, we've got some kind of purple reflections. And then if we look at the reflections on the water too, you've got a lot of purple fringing around the reflections on the water. And here's kind of where the unique lens flare kind of comes out in this. And it's kind of got a rainbow loop to it, and then a reflection off the water causing the same thing in the other direction. So that's pretty interesting. But regardless of that, we're still fairly sharp in the center here, and not too much chromatic aberration in this one. You see a little bit of purple up in here, but it's really not that bad. And here's the most exaggerated of that lens flare that I could capture. And we've got a huge loop here, and we've got some rainbowing, and then the reflection off the water does the same thing. We've also got a little bit of rainbow smudge action happening up here, and then that same kind of smudge in the side, and then we've got the purple over here. So if you wanted something that was maybe a little more artistic, or you're going to shoot video with it and shoot toward the sun, this could really give you some interesting sort of lens flare action. And I was trying to get this to give me a sunburst the entire time I was shooting, and I finally stopped down to maybe f6 or f8, and we got a nice sunburst with 6 arms coming off of it. Very nice. This looks like maybe a filter that you actually put over the photo. This came out very well, and then of course you got this weird purple thing that's always on the other side of the lens flare. Then I also happen to have the lens on my camera when I was at a cafe, and they had these Edison bulbs up, and I thought I would just use this as an opportunity to go almost completely, out of focus, since I'm focused in on the arm of the chair here. You really just get this beautiful little bokeh here. And these soap bubbles are much smaller than a lot of the other lenses. So it's kind of an interesting characteristic, but I still think it looks pretty nice.
Now, although there are about 38 variations on this lens over the years, they're not all created equal. Some have better optical quality than the others. And if you're looking to shop for one of these lenses, you'll want to avoid variants that have A in the name. You also want to avoid M42 mount models. And if you really want to up the quality and don't mind paying a bit more, look for one that says close focus on the lens. So as I said before, this lens I paid about $21 for. That's a pretty cheap price for this, especially in as good a condition as it is. So I think I kind of got lucky. However, if you're looking for this, expect to pay anywhere from $30 to $65, and for close focus models, maybe anywhere from $50 to about $85. But either way, you're getting more than you pay for. This is a great little lens for the money, and because of the size, it's really easy to just throw in any camera bag, and it's also pretty durable. It's easy to focus. The drawbacks are, it's not sharp until you hit about f4, all the way up to about f8, and then you start to decrease in quality again as you go up to f16. And the half stops are really nice if you're trying to get a very specific aperture you're trying to adjust to light, so it's a nice touch there. This specific lens has a little bit of a sloppy focus, I'd say. It's a little more than loose. There's just a hair of play in there, which doesn't bother me at all, because if you're shooting video with it, loose focus can actually be helpful for pulling focus. So my overall thoughts on this lens: you've got a lightweight, easy to focus, great build quality, and so small you can throw it in any camera bag and take it with you anywhere. And it's cheap. The price, you can't beat the price. If you can find one of these for 30 to 40 bucks and a close focus model for around 60, you've got yourself a really nice little 28mm lens to toss in your bag. The other bonus about buying cheap lenses is when you're shooting in sand and dirt and water and dust, if your lens gets all messed up, you go buy another one. So overall, I think great value for money, and I'll pick a second one up if I can find it at a good enough price. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. I've got a whole wall of lenses to review and a bunch of other camera stuff to look at, and we'll be getting into that soon enough. So don't forget to like and subscribe, give me a little bit of support, and I'll keep making these videos for you. Hope you got something out of it, and until next time, see ya.
I was curious to see the lens flares on this specific lens, so I was trying to shoot a little bit toward the sun, and you can see we've got a little bit of a lens flare right here. That's the only thing we've really got in this frame, and then because we're shooting into the sun, we've also got a loss of that contrast we were talking about before, but it's really not too bad overall. And another example here, this one you've kind of got a burst of blur and a burst of blur, and then there's a rainbow right through the middle here, which is kind of interesting. It's kind of a little swoosh of a rainbow here, and then also that purple that comes in again. And here's another example of sort of that soap bubble bokeh on the outside here. And it just gives you these little soap bubble balls, and they look really nice. It's pretty smooth, not too busy. Of course, in the grass you look busy, but that's because it's grass. And then if we zoom in, you've got a little bit of purple fringing around here and then a little bit of green fringing, but nothing that couldn't be fixed in post.